today's webinar, it is going to be a very thought-provoking webinar. We'll be exploring the significance of actionable threat intelligence in security operations. Renowned cybersecurity leaders from Seqrite will be providing an overview of the threat landscape, demonstrating how to build proactive cyber defense through threat intelligence, help you guide strategic decision-making with practical threat intelligence, and unveil Seqrite threat intelligence solutions. So now that we are caught up about Seqrite, about the webinar, let me introduce you to our very esteemed speakers for today. We have Dr. Lalit Mohan, Chief Product Officer from Seqrite. He brings more than 25 years of experience leading high-performance teams in the IT and cybersecurity industry. Before joining Seqrite, Dr. Lalit was associated with Infosys as the head of product and engineering for its cybersecurity practice and many other premium organizations. His expertise lies in creating advanced cybersecurity solutions to address modern-day threat challenges. And we have our second esteemed speaker, Mr. Jaswinder Singh, the Director of Engineering and Head of Seqrite Labs. He is CSM, CSPO, and MCSD certified techno-managerial professional with 24 years of experience in software and security. His expertise lies in domains of software security, backup and restore, and revenue management. Jaswinder manages Seqrite Labs, the research and analysis department of Quick Heal, and heads threat research, detection apps, content and updates. Being an ISO certified professional, he is also an internal auditor for Quick Heal. So I hand over the floor to Mr. Jaswinder Singh and Dr. Lalit Mohan. All yours, sir.
Thank you, Aditi. What an exciting way of introduction. So let me start the screen, share the screen and get started. While I'm doing that, good morning, everyone. And it's getting close to the end of the year, but I'm sure there is a lot of excitement for FY25. So without further delay, let me get into the introduction that Aditi gave, and I'll touch upon some of those things. So most of us in India would have heard about Quick Heal. We are about 35% in terms of consumer business from antivirus perspective, but I think we have a long journey that we have been in the enterprise business also. So I think today's conversation is going to be around what we do in the threat intelligence, right? Some of our thought leadership that has been going on. Just to touch upon on Seqrite, on the Quick Heal as an organization, we are the largest cybersecurity listed company in the country. We have almost close to 10 million endpoints where we collect telemetry and we try to provide latest antivirus signatures, malware updates, etc., etc. It's not a business that we have just got in the last couple of years, but we have been there for the last almost 30 years, working across 34 locations in India, 76 countries, and more than 30,000 customers, right? And some of our credentials have been both from AV test, which is one of the key tests in terms of this business, as well as from ISO aspect. And a lot of this work is patented from the US Patent Office. So it's an indigenous solution which is globally recognized across the footprint of both consumer and the retail and the enterprise business. Now, one of the things that we have been doing for the last 7-8 years around the enterprise business has been how do we align to the some of the market analyst views like the Gartner in terms of cybersecurity mesh architecture. How do we make sure that some of our products are built locally in India, but can also meet the expectations of the global footprint? And today in the cybersecurity world, it doesn't matter whether it is India or outside India, right? The attackers or the malwares are everywhere. So we are also looking at how do we make sure that our products are global in nature and definitely aligned in terms of scaling requirements. So while today's focus is more around the security intelligence, security labs, but if you look at our footprint, we are there in the endpoint protection, both from EPP, EDR, XDR. We also have from the zero trust access, ZTNA, definitely, and of the the aspect around data privacy, data protection. So we also have got into a foot into what we can do from building indigenous solution that completely understands DPDP, and we are ready by the time the law becomes fully functional. So we've been running some very successful POCs in the last 6 to 9 months. Now, what you're also seeing is some of the gray ones where we don't have presence, but we have a very strong partner ecosystem that we could closely work in terms of providing solutions. So it is essentially a full stack cybersecurity enterprise product company, right from end users to the network to the endpoints to now the current discussion is around these threat intelligence. Now, let me get into the threat intelligence. And one of the things that gets me so excited about Seqrite is one is professionally as an indigenous company trying to make a global presence felt. Second, I'm fortunate that also relates to some of the work that I was doing at an RBI entity, IB card, where we were trying to build the ISAC for the country in the banking sector. And that became a problem statement for me in my PhD, right? A PhD in threat intel, and it's very fortunate, and I'm privileged to be also working in the area of threat intel at Quick Hill. So it's very rare combination where you get both the academic and the professional fronts taken care. Now, getting to the threat intel, I know most of us have SIEM solutions or a SOC or probably an EDR. For any of these behavioral things to be really working near real time and working out based on the patterns rather than just on the signatures is essentially the threat intelligence that is running in the behind, right? You take any global products or the products that we have built, the engine that is really making the difference is the threat intel. I'm not getting into the details of every stat that the analysts have talked about, but if you look at it, whether it is Gartner's, whether it is IDC's, whether it is Ponemon, or even a service provider like Accenture, all of them have been talking about if you have an effective threat intel, it makes your false positive rate lower, it improves your incident response, and obviously your alert fatigue, which is a bothering thing for the analyst, gets less, which means they'll be able to catch the wrong things at the right time to protect the organizations. While we build the solutions, it's also important to keep them current. And one of the way to keep them current is essentially the threat intelligence. So yeah, I'm just trying to set the context in terms of the importance of the threat intel. And while people have different views on threat intel, I can get into the next level of conversation trying to say, most of us use Google. Most of us use these days GPT version of some chat GPT to check on the internet. And probably some of us would have experienced even the perplexity, which says that it has a better coverage and lower hallucination when you're trying to search on the internet. But if you look at it, most of the things that we search on these Googles or any of the search engines is essentially the surface web, right? The surface web and the content that is there on the internet, the surface web only covers 4% of it. And some of the leading search engines do only 40% to 50% of the overall 4% of the internet that is there on the surface web. But the real guys who are trying to operate, who are trying to do things that they should not be doing and trying to make an advantage, take an advantage of the available attack surface to attack on organizations are in that 96% of the content trying to exchange information. That could be your credit cards, that could be your passwords, that could be your other PII information, and trying to see what they can do. So typically the threat intel service providers, when they start claiming, it's not just the surface web, but also the capability to operate in the deep web and the dark web. Some of us would have heard about the Tor, the onion routing, which is a platform that was created for defense to exchange information, and that is probably in the hands of the wrong ones to also exchange information that could be related to the drugs or could be related to some credit card or some email credentials of your CXOs, right? Now, this information is what the threat intel service providers essentially go crawl and different forms, and some of them could be in the plain English, some of them could be in the cryptic language, could be in not necessarily the cryptic on this plain English, could also be in different languages of the world, right? Content could be in Russian, could be in local regional languages, which makes it even tougher. And the moment we are talking about extracting this content, it also means understanding the content in different languages and translating into an actionable information, right? So a threat intel service is essentially collecting the content from this, trying to process, reducing the noise, because we are talking about our own experience of crawling the internet with surface web on the Google or any of the search engines. We see a lot of noise, and you can imagine the amount of noise that could be there in the deep web, dark web. So removing the noise, contextualizing it, and enriching it so that the actionable intelligence that is required for your XDR, EDR, or SIEM solution can really make the difference in terms of how do you want to understand if there is a new signature, or how do you understand if there is a new vulnerability before it actually materializes in your environment, and see what is that you could do proactively, right? While searching on a Google looks easy, while searching on some other internet looks easy, but doing this processing is essentially this cyber threat intelligence is not an easy job to do, right? That's all I wanted to bring in terms of the crawling aspect. But if you want to start and have a plan to consume and probably are consuming it, you would have seen different stages of it, whether it is tactical in nature, which could be probably you're just looking at what is a short-term gain and probably go browse a certain website or look at some information that you get and see if there is any if there is an input in terms of vulnerability or a malware signature, and try to block it on your firewall or go patch your servers, right? But yeah, that's early stage. What you really want is, if something is happening in UK, what does it mean in terms of, or Ukraine more recently, what does it mean in terms of your supply chain impact? In the recent interview, the External Affairs Minister has been talking about the importance of supply chain risk or the challenges with supply chain risk, right? Which is not just limited to food. I mean, while food is one important thing, roti, kapda, makan, but yeah, I think for a country to run, for an organization to run, you need the entire supply chain to be covered, right? And sometimes being indigenous is possible. In some cases, we have to depend on this global supply chain. And how do you understand what is happening and what does it mean in terms of the risks that our organization can carry? And some of those risks could be things that the attackers could be talking in the dark web, right? So a threat intel from a cybersecurity includes not just what we hear on the news, what we can crawl, what we can see on the search engines, but also getting understanding in the deep dark web and see what does that mean in terms of the strategic input for threat intel. It could be in terms of operational, which could be more in terms of what are the tactics, techniques, procedures that these guys are looking at, and how do you weaponize, or what do you do in terms of improving your SIEM solutions or SOC before the attackers weaponize to attack on you, right? It is not possible to do all tactical, operational, strategic on one go, but yeah, essentially the aspect of starting somewhere, gradually maturing in terms of being reactive to a predictive, so that the organizations are not falling into the hands, or at least trying to protect before something catastrophic happens, is the journey of threat intel, right? Yeah, I thought I'll just give some broad high-level overview in terms of what does threat intel mean, what does that mean in terms of maturity. But yeah, I think we as an organization have been in this for the last 20, 30 years. And what I would now request is my colleague, Jaswinder, to talk about the effort that we do at Seqrite Labs.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lalit, for setting the context, and good morning, everybody. So, like Dr. Lalit mentioned, when QuickHeal was established 30 years back by the founders, Dr. Kailash Katkar and Dr. Sanjay Katkar, they had a vision to not simply take a tactical view of writing signatures for malwares. The dream which propelled Katkar brothers was to indigenously build capabilities in India Okay, so continuing with the statistics about the Seqrite labs, like I mentioned, we have been in this business for close to 3 decades. And all this while we have been building our repository, and the dream has not just to be a tactical and try to write a signature for a malware. That's not something that we wanted to do. Our vision has actually evolved over years of hardship in collecting malware samples, analyzing them, reverse engineering their methodologies, and writing protection against them. The end result is a Quick Heal that we know today. Quick Heal is India's homegrown cybersecurity company with 1,000+ trained cybersecurity professionals who are the power behind Quick Heal's strong presence in enterprises, retail, and government sectors. And Quick Heal has India's oldest and largest malware lab, and our expertise lies in nurturing and operating this lab over the last 3 decades. The samples that we have in our repository, they range from 30-year-old legacy malware to the most recent ones. Our repository is continuously updated, almost on a real-time basis, and we have systems and mechanisms in place to keep it populated in an automated manner. Today, we have 2 billion known files, and we process more than 1 million new samples on a daily basis. Similarly, on the URL front, we have 300 million URLs, which we have appropriately classified and categorized in multiple categories. And this is done to provide granular control to the organizations to fine-tune their policies of allowing or blocking specific categories of URLs as required in their business operations. We have a huge data lake of 100 TB, which is actively used for training our ML models. And the results that we're seeing from our ML models are extremely encouraging. And these numbers that you see on the slide are growing at a rapid pace. So like I said, we have automations and we have crawlers and whatnot to make sure that we augment our repository on an ongoing manner. Okay, securing India's national cyber assets is not only a business deal for us. This is something that is a passion, and it comes from the moral responsibility that we have towards our nation. We have been actively tracking and monitoring our nation's cyber assets and been dealing with a lot of government entities, some of the names you see on the slides right now. Certain NCI, NCIPC, DSCI, NCSE, and you name any of them. So we have been in constant touch with them proactively. And also there are certain times when we have been approached by these and other entities to seek our help and our expertise in looking at what's happening on the threat landscape of our nation. Specifically, there was a G20 event that happened last year in India, and that attracted a lot of threat actors so that they can defame India at the time when a lot of foreign dignitaries were in town, were in different cities of India. Similarly, earlier in this year, January, we had Ayodhya Mandir event. So at that time, also government they had requested us to reach out and see what's happening beneath the surface. What is it that we can do to proactively identify the miscreants and try to derail their operations? So this is something we do on an ongoing basis across all major events, including Independence and Republic Days, for the government entities and for the defense organizations. And there were tons of cyber threat actors that we had identified and blocked their missions during these special events. We are proud security partners of ISRO, and we were actively engaged before, during, and after the launch of their moon mission, Chandrayaan-3. So that was a huge accomplishment from our ISRO, from our nation's asset. And we were right there protecting their cybersecurity aspects from Quick Heal. Additionally, we have a strong presence in our dark web research. We have been targeting specific threat actors across some of our not so friendly neighborhood countries, including Pakistan, China, and even Russia. So we have been tracking the state-sponsored agents, including Operation Side Copy, Transparent Drive, and there are so many more of them. They have their nefarious designs, and our goal and target is to make sure that we are able to track and mitigate against their campaigns. So again, this is something that we've been doing for quite some time, and we are actively keeping a track of all these threat actors. Moving on, so additionally, in addition to what we do on the dark web, we also have our eye on the Android front. So as part of our ongoing research, we analyze the new and existing applications which are present on the Play Store. And we have seen large number of malicious applications that have bypassed the security checks performed by Google and have ended up listing on the Play Store. We have found various types of malicious applications, including self-hiding apps, auto launchers, applications that mimic other well-known apps. So I hope some of you would be aware of the malicious loan app or the spy loan apps, which were commonly known a few months back. They had created havoc in lives of a lot of people. So, and some applications, they use overlays with fake user interfaces, and they use key logging and other social engineering aspects to trap users. Specifically, we had very recently, we had targeted 33 malicious applications and identified, and we worked with Google to remove them from the Play Store. And these applications, before they were removed, they were being downloaded by 8.2 million users. So you can imagine the widespread impact these malicious applications had on a huge number of people. One very interesting case that I would like to talk about is an infector that was a real, this is really called a loss of nuisance for cybersecurity folks. And this was an Expiro. Expiro is a file infector that infects applications by appending its virus code to the potentially executable files. Expiro actually is an old infector, but the thing is it keeps showing up with new variants with increasing complexities. And typical sources from which Expiro creeps in include cracked or unpatched versions of softwares or drive-by download. So for example, if somebody visits an infected or a malicious site, Expiro gets downloaded on the system silently. And it can also be dropped through other malware, spreads through USBs, malvertising campaigns, and so on and so forth. The latest variant of Expiro was a type of an appender virus. So it infected files by inserting its virus code at the end of the file, specifically at the end of the last section of the executable file. So it patches a call in the executable section that jumps to the last section, and at the offset, which was predetermined, it used to, had this malicious code at that point in the file. And subsequently, it used to connect to the remote servers and receives commands to execute on the infected systems. So Expiro keeps the appended code in an encrypted fashion. And what made the decryption of Expiro complex was the fact that the decryption routine used multiple combinations of lengthy arithmetic and logical operations. So at Seqrite Labs, we analyzed multiple files of this variant of Expiro and found that the decompressed buffer for most of the infected files almost remained the same. The thing was that its wrapper kept on changing. And one of the more peculiar and amusing fact about Expiro was that the infection process is implemented in such a manner that the infected application works just as a normal application without the user knowing that the application is actually infected. So for example, if a executable file is infected, it would continue to appear as normal, and user can open and launch and use that application like a normal application. So what this means is if you happen to launch, say, an infected Word file, it would continue to open and render its functionality that a normal Word file does. What happens in the background is, unlike most infectors, Expiro possesses worm-like capabilities. So it checks for network map drives, it looks for any other executable files on the system or any connected drives, and infects them as well. So while the end user will not know what's happening behind the surface, there's a lot of damage that is caused very quickly by Expiro. And like I mentioned, by connecting to a remote malicious CNC server, it acts as a backdoor by sending system information and receiving command from those C2C servers. And so what we have seen is for Expiro, and which is also true for a lot of other threat actors, they periodically pull down their CNC servers and they only bring them up at specific times. So in a nutshell, in our analysis, we were able to establish that Expiro acted like a jack of all trades malware. So we saw variants of Expiro which installed other malwares like keyloggers and ransomware and so on and so forth. It stole and uploaded sensitive information to its command and control servers. It disabled security software from the systems and also established itself to act at a later point in time. So along with Expiro, we have also been doing a lot of research about the applications which are published, newly published. So recently we identified 0-day vulnerabilities and we got CV numbers allocated as well. So 2 of the examples that we have listed on the slide. And this is something which we do on an ongoing basis to make sure that we are right up there to protecting our customers and our Indian citizens. Okay. So outside of our commercial activities, we also provide a free bot removal tool, which is hosted on the Certain's website, and anybody can really go and download the tool. And we keep, even though it's a free tool, we make sure that we keep updating it for protection against bots. And we have been actively engaged by the industry forums like Avar and Cocoon and a lot of other forums. And they invite us to speak and share our research and intel with the wider fraternity. So you have heard about we being engaged with the Indian government and defense organizations for quite some time. But additionally, we are also a technology collaborator with the government of US. So in fact, NCCOE, so they have tied up with us, with Quick Heal, and we are the only Indian company which is having this technological collaboration with the US government. Okay, so I'll give you one quick example of one of the campaigns that we noticed about an APT, which is called Transparent Tribe. And so this was part of our ongoing dark web research and the investigations that we do elsewhere. So the interesting thing was this Transparent Tribe has been constantly attacking our government and our military organizations. And this example that I'm sharing with you today is specifically for the Indian Army. And the campaign was revision of officials' posting policy. Now, what happens with defense is they typically have a routine, posting policy. So this is not something which is of the blue. So people in Army and defense, they expect that they will get communication regarding, relocation or posting at a certain place and so on and so forth. So the Transparent Tribe threat actor misused this information and tried to have a campaign against Indian Army on this context. So the infection chain, which you can see on the screen, it's initiated with a phishing mail that was sent to a lot of Army personnel, and that phishing mail contained a malicious PPT, which actually had embedded OLE objects in it. Now, the interesting thing was these OLE objects, when the PPT was launched, it did two things. On the forefront, it actually launched a PPT file which really talked about the posting policy, and it was actually a fake file, but it was mimicking like a real file, and it talked about the lot of policy and where the posting is going to happen, when the reporting should happen, and so on and so forth. All those fake details were there in the decoy file. But behind the surface, what was happening in the background was this also launched an archive file which contained a remote access Trojan. And this remote access Trojan was the real payload, which was actually doing the harm. And it was kind of contacting to the command and control center, which was set up by the Transparent Tribe folks. And it was trying to steal away a lot of information from the endpoints where this execution happened. So we were able to crack this and proactively informed our contacts in government and military establishments, and we were able to ensure that this attack was mitigated before it could cause real damage to our defense forces. And we had specific intel which made us, attribute this to Transparent Tribe, which is a Pakistan-based threat actor, and this was highly applauded by government and military establishments. So this is the kind of crux about what we do in Seqrite Labs in Quick Heal. And, with this, we conclude our presentation.